People can tell what you're about or what you do by your appearance, by the outside. For example, if you're a golfer, you're supposed to dress like this. Been playing a little golf, obviously not much, because if you're actually a golfer and you see me, you realize, I don't know if I'd wear that, but this is way beyond what I would normally wear right here. First of all, I'd never tuck in my shirt. This is my only pseudo golf shirt. Khakis, not really my thing. But if you're gonna golf, this is what you're supposed to wear. This is how you're supposed to dress. It's funny because the game of golf started with guys with sticks hitting little leather balls just to have fun. There were no golf courses, there were no clubs. But then as things get old, they get more rules, they get more guidelines, more restrictions, more expectations. There's something that's appropriate and something that's not appropriate. And so as I've started hanging out on these golf courses, I realize as I look around, everybody kind of looks the same. And when I'm not wearing the right stuff, if I don't have the right bag, which I don't, if I don't have matching clubs, which I don't, people notice. They can tell if you're in the club by your appearance. And so we have someone right now that I'm really excited about because she's made a decision to follow Jesus. And I'm concerned that she's going to think that she needs to look around and copy what everybody else is doing. That she needs to now adjust her appearance. Jesus said this. He said, the public will know if you're following me by the way you treat each other. In John 13:35, he said this. He said, by this, everyone will know that you are my followers, if you love one another. That should be the defining element. That should be the defining characteristic of the followers of Jesus. But here's the crazy thing. As golf clubs, and I don't mean the actual club, the stick, I mean the clubs where all the golfers hang out, as they've gotten older and older, they add more and more rules. Now remember, this is a game that started with hitting a little leather ball with a stick. And now there's all of these rules, all of these expectations. You can even get kicked out of these clubs because if you break some of these rules, then you're out. And I want this young girl, as she's made this huge decision, I want her to understand clearly what it means to be a part of following Jesus. Because this faith, somehow over time, it turned into a club, religion. And we've started adding rule upon rule upon rule upon rule, and I don't want her to get distracted with those rules. And so that is also my hope for the many of you maybe listening in. Some of you have made the decision to follow Jesus, and I want you to have a clear understanding of what we're called to wear. And there's many of you that are listening in that aren't following Jesus. That's fine. You don't have to be held to this standard. But hey, you're welcome to do them because you'll be set free by them. So what I want us to do during this time is look at what it is to follow Jesus. How do we dress? What is our appearance supposed to be? What matters? And this is a good time to test that. 2020 hasn't been really the best year so far. And in this period of time, there are all of these issues that have risen to the surface. They're important, of course. Not essential, but they're important. And there's a test to see if we're acting like a religion or if we're acting as followers of Jesus. Some of the primary things that are sticking out to me right now that are a good test for us would be how we approach the issue of masks. You know what I'm talking about, right? There's people on both sides. And there are people following Jesus or attempting to follow Jesus on both sides. However, they're not dressed like a follower of Jesus. There is the issue of whether schools should open. Should they open? Should they half open? Should they just be online? And there's people on all of those sides. And there's people that are saying they're following Jesus, and yet they're treating each other so poorly. Jesus said the people, the public, will know that you're following me by the way you treat each other. But we're not often in public wearing what we should be wearing. Kind of either half-dressed or undressed. Another issue is in Black Lives Matter. This shouldn't be difficult, right? I mean, this should be easy. Yes, Black Lives Matter. And yes, we have here in the United States not lived that out. And so in saying it, we need to live it. Now, how we do that, that's where all these divisive stances are coming, where people are standing all over the place. And some of them say they follow Jesus, but they're not treating each other on the opposite side of their viewpoint with honor, with humility, with patience, with compassion. Those are the things that we should be wearing. Jesus said, as I have loved you, so you need to love one another. That's how we should dress. We have different issues on government. I know this is brand new news for many of you. And that doesn't mean that people on the different sides are wrong and on other sides they're right. Usually we think that if they're on our side, we're right and they're wrong. We're good, they're bad. That's not the way this works. But it's not where we stand. It's our stance. What I mean by that, it doesn't matter what side, if there is a side, that you choose to stand on. It's how you stand that's important. It's how we treat each other. The thing about religion is it can be about rules over relationships. And I want us to be reminded what this is really about. And so Paul says this. He says that we need to clothe ourselves. Clothe ourselves as followers of Jesus. And so in Colossians 3:12 through 14, he says this. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. That should sound familiar because the last message that we gave was also about how should followers of Jesus dress? What should Christians wear? And like at the last message, I just want to focus on 3 of the items in the wardrobe. And I think they're so key for us right now at this time, because in those different issues, our stance needs to involve these elements. And the first one is humility. Now, in each of these 3, I want to make sure that we define what it is and what the opposite of humility is. So, humility is to see yourself correctly. So, for example, in humility, I'm pretty sure that I could throw a lot of money down on a bet that you've made a mistake before, that you've been wrong before. I know I have. In fact, I don't know anyone but Jesus who hasn't done that. So if you've been wrong before, maybe you could be wrong again. So when you stand on a certain place, on a certain issue, your stance should be one that is flexible. That doesn't mean you're soft. It means you're willing to admit that you could be wrong. That you allow God to mold you. And in molding us, we need to be moldable. It's that when we are approaching other people, we don't let the issue get in the way, but we honor someone else. We humble ourselves before them by giving them honor. Another way to look at that is it's to be human rather than to consider yourself superior. So we need to dress in this humility. I think something that is so important during this time, an act of humility, is to be intentional in trying to hold two opposite views at the same time. So, for example, if you think schools should open and you think it's ridiculous that it should be online at all, and yet there's someone else that feels it should be completely online, humility would mean, let me try to listen. Not let me be superior, but let me try to hold their view as well. And to hold that view means you would be curious. To be curious is to be humble. By being curious of another person and the way they think, you'll be surprised how things seem to wash away. The next thing is patience. Patience is an easy one. To be patient means to wait. That's what it means. So you know when you're getting in one of these issues, maybe it's an issue of the government or our leaders, and you know someone has a different opinion from you, the way we dress is with patience. We wait. And you know you're not waiting when that rush starts inside. You know what I'm talking about? Where as someone else is talking, now you stop listening. Your heart starts speeding up. You're already processing what you want to say. In fact, your lips may move a little bit because you're forming what you're going to say because you're not waiting. You're ready to pounce. Patience, another word for patience is to have long suffering with another person. Because when someone thinks something different from you, then it challenges what you think. And that's suffering. So to be long suffering is to be patient, to wait. The opposite of that would be to be explosive, to be impulsive, to be reactive. We need to dress with patience in these issues. And the last one is probably my favorite. It's my favorite because I intended this message to only be one message last week. And yet, this idea of bearing with one another, having tolerance with one another was so powerful that I didn't want it to get buried. And humility and patience go really well. They're all intertwined. They go well with bearing with one another. Or another way to say that is tolerance with each other. Now, tolerance can have all kinds of different connotations, but what we mean by that is that you would be understanding rather than authoritative. Another way to look at that is to be receptive or humane, not dismissive, but inclusive. So often we take the place of impatience with other people. We take a place where we just want to shut them down. I'm not going to bear with you. I'm not going to be long suffering with you. I'm not going to put up with this. This is where I stand. That is not the characteristic of a follower of Jesus, because that's not the characteristics of Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but he took on the nature of a servant to other people. For example, Jesus could have easily, when he came, just been very streamlined. He could just looked around and said, wrong, no, you're blowing it. I know what you did. I know what you did with you last night. No, no, no. He could have just laid it out. But that's not his approach. Because it's not about the rules over the relationships. He cares about people. These issues matter, but they only matter by the way that they affect people, humans. We're more human when we're like Jesus. We're more human when we're following Jesus. And so as we look at how we're going to move forward, as we look on how do we know if we're following Jesus, and for this message, how will the public know that we're following Jesus? It's how we treat other people. It's not where we stand, but it's our stance. It's not what you say, but it's how you say it. Does that make sense? So daily, we need to slow things down, and we need to recognize some of the indications that we're falling into the rules. We're following into the club. When you feel that rush come on, that's an indication. When you can feel yourself almost emotionally and mentally standing over someone else and you see them shrinking, then we're not treating others above ourselves. Maybe it's that when you're driving home, you need to pull over and pause. Maybe it's when you're driving to work, you need to pull over and prepare yourself to get dressed. When I go to play golf, I can't just walk out like I want to. I have to consciously go, oh, what? How's this supposed to work again? It's not natural. These elements, these virtues that Paul says that we need to clothe ourselves with, he says that we need to clothe ourselves because we have to be intentional about it, because it doesn't come natural. But the more you wear it, it starts to fit. And the truth is that this is easier for someone that's younger, for this young girl that's making this decision to follow Jesus. This is much easier for her because she can just focus on the basics. Much like in golf, it's just about hitting a ball with a stick. That's what it's about. When it comes to following Jesus, that's what it's about. Following Jesus. But for those of us that are older, it's just like the clubs. The older a club is, like the Christian faith, the Christian church, we start creating new rules and new guidelines and dress codes and where you can park and what you can say and the kind of clubs you can have. And there's so many things we add on, and as individual human beings, when we get older, we get stuck in our way and we forget about people, and instead we look at the rules. And the truth is, the club is shrinking. The church is shrinking, probably for good reason. It's not because of Jesus, but it's because of all the religion, all the rules. Can you imagine if we were to love each other with compassion, and kindness, and humility, and gentleness, bearing with one another, forgiving each other as we have been forgiven, and then to cover it all with love? Man, we wouldn't have room for all the people that would want to be around. They might not even know who Jesus is yet, but they'd say, I want some of that. I want some of those one another's. The way you guys are interacting with each other, the way that you're doing this, something's different. I want a piece of that. As I have loved you, love one another. May God bless.